Robert Plank Show episode 204. Solve a problem with nonfiction or entertain with fiction. Sell more Amazon books, attract reviews, and increase book sales with Jim Kukral. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about making some money. Our guest today is Jim Kukral, and for over 16 years, he has helped small businesses and large companies like FedEx, Sherwin-Williams, Ernst & Young, and Progressive Auto Insurance understand how to build successful online businesses or energize and refresh existing ones, learn how to leverage social media for more sales, create imaginative marketing campaigns, innovate new products, attract first-class publicity, and make more profits with less work. We're going to talk today about how you authors out there can get your books published, fiction or nonfiction. Mr. Jim, how are things today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
I am glad that you're on. And so, okay, so authors getting their books online, and so in that sort of space, what makes you stand out and what makes you different and special?
Huh. For me, you mean specifically?
Yeah,
Are you talking about the author? Well, for me,
talking about
I've
you.
been doing this a long time. So I had to update my bio. I'm almost 20 years into this internet marketing business stuff. And I wrote one of the first ebooks online, was selling it way before Kindle and all that stuff. And then in about 7 years ago, I had my first book published from a traditional publisher, Wiley and Sons. And I realized really quickly that the business was changing. Traditional publishing is still great, still exists. However, self-publishing is where it's at. And since that first book came out with Wiley, I've self-published over 10 books. And I realized, wow, you really got to market and learn how, if you want to be successful writing books today, you got to write a great book, but you also have to learn how to market that book. So I have been focusing the last 6, 7 years on helping authors figure out how to write a great book, and then also, more importantly, how to market that book.
I've noticed that too. I've noticed that, and I'm guilty of this too. Like I think that I'll have an idea for a book, and I'll put it off for months and months, and I'll finally get around to making it, and I'll put it out there, and I think, oh, I did all that stuff. I'm finally done, and then I'll make that initial handful of sales, but then I'll check on some of my books later on, and then the Amazon ranking will be like 500,000 or like a million or something. So I mean, how important is this whole promotion thing? I mean, is it more important than the book, or like, I mean, when someone puts out a book, should they be putting like an hour a week into it, or like how much of this promotion stuff you're talking about goes into marketing the book?
Well, I guess it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing it for, first of all, let me backtrack to this. There's two reasons people use the internet. Number one, to have a problem solved, and number two, to be entertained. Those are the only two reasons people use the internet. And frankly, if you think about that, to have a problem solved in the book world is nonfiction, and to be entertained is fiction. So whether you're a nonfiction author or a fiction author, there's two different paths you can go. Obviously, nonfiction is a fantastic way to build your business, to get leads, to get speaking gigs, to do all of those things. In the fiction world, entertaining people is the way to do that. But so there's two different tracks. You know, if you're going to be in the nonfiction world, you might just write one book every couple of years and use that book to generate leads and get sales for your business. If you're in the fiction world, writing one book usually isn't the recipe for having success. You know, creating a model where you have many books is kind of where most professional authors have gone nowadays, and amateur authors have gone, where they're able to sell a backlist of books and build leads over that, and have a lot of success. So I guess it kind of depends on what you're writing, what you want to do.
Okay, fair enough. And so when we're talking about, so people need to have multiple books, but as far as like if they have a book out there, what sort of action should people be taking to increase those sales?
Okay, well, let's talk about nonfiction. I don't know how many of your audience is probably more nonfiction people here than fiction at this point.
Probably, yeah.
You know, one of the greatest things that happened when I wrote my traditionally published book was, it came in that really nice hardback cover. Bookstores is really not a thing that happens much anymore. The whole bookstore business is kind of out the window. It's very hard to get a traditionally published book nowadays. However, what was great about that book was that I had that book that I was able to get a lot of speaking gigs. But the biggest thing that happened with the nonfiction book was, in the back of my book, I had a little call out section that was a lead gen that basically said, hey, if you want to have a 15-minute, no cost, no obligation phone call with me to talk about how I can help you increase your online business, sign up for this website. And they got on my calendar. And I did literally thousands of sales calls. And I got 90% of my business over a 5-year period from just that little blurb in the back of my book. So that's an amazing way to generate leads for your business. And of course, because you've written a book, you are an expert on something. I always tell people this story. I had a friend who emailed me and he said, Jim, I'm starting a social media marketing agency that targets real estate agents. He goes, I want to write a book. I don't know what to call it. And I said, I got the perfect answer for you. Ready? And he goes, yeah. I go, the book is called Social Media Marketing for Real Estate Agents. And he said, oh yeah, I guess that's exactly what I should call it, because when you walk into a real estate agent's office or you show them online that you've actually written a book on the topic that is exactly what you want to sell them, it builds that credibility factor. So for the nonfiction world, the credibility is absolutely huge, and it can generate a lot of business for you.
And I like that template right there of, some sort of some action like social media marketing for this group of people. And so, I mean, if someone is sort of making a book for that purpose, if they're making a book to try to, get some sales, get some coaching clients and things like that, I mean, should everyone sort of use that template for the title of this sort of thing for this crowd of people?
Well, in the nonfiction world, I believe so. I think if you're specifically writing a book for a specific audience to generate leads, then absolutely. I'm a big fan of say what you do, because why are you trying to confuse people, right? When you come up with some really creative, clever title, and then most people are going to be like, I didn't really understand that was for me. So if you're using it from a pure lead sales standpoint, absolutely, you should call it what it is. And people will appreciate that. And then some people say, well, Jim, what if I write a book and I put all my secrets in the book, people won't buy from me. But that is such an old argument. The truth is that people want to hire people that they feel comfortable with, that they know, like, and trust. And the book builds that trust. And telling people how you're going to do something doesn't mean they're going to hire you. It just means that it validates that you know what you're talking about. And the truth is that most people don't want to do it themselves. So go ahead and tell the world every single secret you have. When people call me for consulting, when I used to do consulting, I'd say, hey, here's exactly what I would do. And I'd lay it out for them in 15 minutes on the phone. I go, here's what you should do. And they're like, okay, you're right. And more than half of those people would go, okay, can I hire you to help me do that? Because most people don't want to do the work. They just want someone to help them.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's sort of, and I mean those two things together, right? Like you make the title of just flat out saying what it is, and then you make the contents of the book exactly what you would do to solve that problem. It sounds like that saves people all the thinking about it and all the agonizing about, like, well, what do I give away for free? What do I hide? So you're saying reveal everything, because the end game is for them to hire you to do that thing, and who cares if they know the exact steps of what it is you're doing.
Well, yeah, if you're in that business and you're just trying to get leads and things like that. If you're in the fiction business, right? So I know a lot of people who are writing fiction books. I got a call from a person who I hadn't talked to in like 3 or 4 years. They were an internet associate, and they said, Jim, I've been following your self-publishing stuff, and I've been reading all these stories about people who have had success. He goes, I always thought that I could write great romance books. This is a man, by the way. And he goes, so I sat down one day after I listened to all your stuff, and I started writing romance books. And I wrote 1, and I wrote 2, and he goes, I'm up to 10. And he goes, I just wanted to let you know that I officially just quit my other business today because I'm so good at writing romance novels and under this female pen name that I'm making more money than I made per month that I did in a year writing these romance novels. So anyone can have success in this if you have the ability to write a great book. And of course, you got to learn how to do the marketing as well.
And so along those lines, so that your friend there who made the romance books, I mean, do you know if he has a template, or do you have a template, or I mean, what sort of steps go into fiction as opposed to nonfiction?
Well, obviously, like we said, the nonfiction is you're solving someone's problem. And the fiction, it's all about entertainment, writing for a genre. I have several other close friends, and I know there's thousands of people who write books in a specific genre. I have a friend who writes horror. I have a friend who writes post-apocalyptic. I have a friend who writes fantasy. I have a friend who writes, romance, erotica, and all those things. So they write books in a genre. And basically the model that they're taking is we're going to write as many books as we possibly can, put them in a series. And one of the biggest tactics that people do nowadays is they write 2 or 3 books, or they write one, and then they use that first book as a lead gen for the other books. So you say, I'm going to give you a copy of this first book for free, but then here's books 2, 3, and 4. They put them in a box set. Of course, inside each one of the books is a lead magnet back to their website, where they're getting people signed up for their social media profiles or onto their email list so they can sell them future books. So it's an entire business model, and it can be maintained and put in all these books in an evergreen format that you can sell forever and ever. And of course, the best part about it is selling on Amazon and other online retailers, you're earning way more money than you would selling through a traditional publisher, where you're only getting 17.5% in typical fashion of every book that's sold, and online you're getting way more than that.
Awesome. And what I've seen a little bit here and there is that, I mean, there's all these advantages to publishing fiction with Kindle, where I've even seen some of the authors like clean up plot holes or make small corrections based on what the reviews and the reactions were to those books.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the best part about doing digital stuff. Anyone can be successful at this if you're writing good content. Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian, which was turned into a major Hollywood movie starring Matt Damon, Andy Weir started writing that book on his blog, just in like little blog posts. And I think he was like halfway through it, and his readers were like, wow, you should really put this into a Kindle book. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. He succumbed to the pressure, and he put it in the Kindle book when he was done. And all of a sudden it became this huge, gigantic thing because it was great content. And, he can update that anytime. And it's if you can write helpful, problem solving, or entertaining content, you can have success online. Now, of course, Andy Weir is one of those outliers that really got the Hollywood contract and all that stuff. However, there are a lot of people out there who are making very significant money writing really good books in nonfiction and fiction. And of course, there's the people out there who are trying to take the cheap route, and they're writing, tons of cookbooks and, hastily made books that they're outsourcing from writers and trying to do that. I just have a message for anyone who's listening. That kind of stuff just doesn't work in the Kindle space. It did work for a while. People were making some money doing that. But if you want to get into the author business, there's really 2 ways to go. The nonfiction way, where you're writing that 1 or 2 books and you're using to generate leads, or you're writing really good genre-specific fiction books and you're using a tried and true method of people creating books and getting people to buy your books in a backlist and building your own list. And you can do it. You can be very successful.
I mean, that's good advice, right? Like, don't publish crap, because even if whatever sort of loophole might have existed or might exist now, it sounds like it at some point will be closed by Amazon. So any sort of trick to repurpose public domain or cookbooks or whatever, it sounds like it might be a lot of work, only for Amazon to give you a slap there. So as far as people writing, real legitimate books, so is your advice for someone, should someone try a little nonfiction or a little fiction, or should they just stick on one track and just be like a Andy Weir or a Blake Crouch or someone, and just be like, okay, I'm going to keep making this set of books? I mean, should they just be sticking to one track, or both?
Well, it's just like internet marketing. If you're building an internet business, you want to build it to your market. You don't find a big enough group of people who have a problem and then solve that problem. Okay. So writing a book, if you're writing nonfiction or fiction, you want to write to your genre. So in the fiction world, you're not going to write, I have people email me all the time. They're like, Jim, I've written a 17th century poetry book, and how do I make sales of it? And I'm like, you're probably not going to, because there's just not that big of a market of people who want to read 17th century poetry, right? So you got to write in a genre where people are actively, buying a lot of books in. It's the same thing as you would start an internet business, for if there's not a big target market of people to buy that product or sign up for that membership site, you're probably not going to have much success. So this is a business. The romantic notion of writing a book that, Hemingway-esque book, and doing that whole thing, it's just not what we're talking about here. We're talking about creating content and putting it into book form and using it to generate leads for your business, or using it to build income through the direct sales of those books.
Awesome. So no more of that suffering for 20 years to make the perfect book. You go out there and it's more scientific. And so so if you look, I mean, so it's one thing to say, like look at and do some research and see what sells. But I mean, what's sort of your process there? Like when you go and you look at, so say like we keep coming back to like the romance novel. So say like you go and you look at like the romance novels. I mean, how do you tell if a certain type of book is selling well, and then how do you like put your own spin on that so that you're not just making yet another like vampire romance novel?
Well, I mean, there's lots of ways to do that. I have a site called authormarketingclub.com, and we have a tool coming out soon that kind of helps you figure out those things, where you can figure out what's the top selling genre. There's a manual way to do it. You can just go to Amazon, you can just start looking in the top categories or do some Google searches. You can see what the top genres are and what people are buying. My advice to you is, if you don't have a skill for writing in post-apocalyptic or horror or romance, then you probably shouldn't attempt to write a book in that, because the greatest and worst, actually it's the greatest thing about Amazon and selling books online, is that the market is controlled by the readers. In other words, if you put a book online and it's not good, it's not going to get reviews. It's not going to get shared. People aren't going to talk about it, and it's never really going to go anywhere. I don't care how much promotion you put behind it. And it's the Amazon review system has democratized the ability to really be successful. You can promote it all day long on Facebook, and you can promote it through emails or whatever you want to do. But if it's not good and it's not targeted to that audience, it's never going to build you a business. It's never going to be successful. So you really got to think about that before you start writing a book. If you're not into romance, you can't write it, don't try it, because it's probably not going to work.
Okay, and that makes sense, and I guess that also makes sense because if someone is like a huge fan, like maybe your friend who writes the romance novels, like I'm sure he's read a bunch of romance novels, so he kind of gets the lay of the land, and so that makes sense with you saying that don't just jump into something just because it sounds good, like go with something that you already know, and sort of along those lines, and so you mentioned, so don't write a book. If you don't think that it will sell or you don't know a lot about it. And so, I mean, what's your favorite way of making a book? Like, are you a write it yourself kind of guy, a dictate it, a ghost write it, a co-author? Like, what's your favorite way to do that?
Everyone has their own process. I think the scariest part about this whole thing is, since Gutenberg invented the printing press, the media, the publishers have controlled this process for all this time. And basically what they have told us over time was, there's no possible way you, Jim, or Robert, could ever write a book, because we know what people want, and there's a special process, and we have to get it printed, and it has to go through all these elite media. It's all out the window. Okay, so get that notion out of your head right now. Anyone can do this. You're probably already doing it in form of video or blog posts or whatever you're doing. All you need to do now is open up a Word document and start writing. There's no special format or anything. I mean, you literally just take a Word document, write in it, go to Kindle, KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, and for free, upload that file with a book cover you can get done for $5 or $500, and have a book online in less than 24 hours. There's the only thing stopping people from being successful in this is those types of things where people don't believe that it's possible, because it really is. And the barriers of entry and the gates have been crashed on this.
And I agree with you there. And so if someone already
Did I
has
lose you,
something.
Robert?
Hello, am I back? I was muted. Sorry. Am I back? Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello. I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Let's
Robert.
see. I can hear you, but you can't hear me. Testing, testing. Okay. Hello. Testing, testing. Says microphone's working fine. Testing, testing. Hello, I can see. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Calling you back. Hello, am I back?
Yeah.
All right, we'll just edit that part out. As we're sort of winding this call down, so if someone already has those raw materials that you talked about, like if they already have, say, like blog posts, or they already have, something that's already there, I mean, what would your advice be to someone who is being too much of a perfectionist, right? So if they've written a bunch of stuff and they're like, well, I have to spell check it one more time, or I have to make one more pass. I mean, what would your advice be to someone who's trying to avoid being a perfectionist and get that dang book out there?
Yeah, it's a little bit different in like creating internet businesses. I always advise people to like don't hem and haw over the price too long because you don't know if people are going to buy it until you put it in front of their face and see what the price is. For a book, it's a little bit different. You need to be a little bit more cautious. Releasing a book online before it's really well edited and typo checked and proofread is a mistake. So you really need to spend a little bit of money, get a family member or somebody, and pay somebody to get some editing, because that's like one of the biggest cardinal sins you can make is uploading something that's going to be full of errors or is not really the best it can be. Because remember, your lifeblood is the reviews. If somebody comes at and reads the book and boy, they didn't like it, or it was full of all holes and things like that, they're going to review it. And you can never get rid of those reviews. The only way you could get rid of them is to unpublish the book and republish the book again. So you definitely want to be a little bit cautious before you upload a book and make sure that it's the cover's right, the editing's right before you upload it.
Okay, but I mean, you just mentioned there that so even though someone might be sort of a little nervous about it, one thing that you mentioned there is that if you either hire someone to edit for you or you have a family member look at it, then I guess then that can help with the doubt there, right? Like if you have that third party validation of someone else saying, okay, I've gone through it and here's the things to fix. Great, now we fixed it. Now it's ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've done this, and I know a lot of other authors who started their first books that they put up just weren't good, right? And it's like the first time you do anything worth doing, it's not the best it's going to be. Like first podcast you ever created, I've done thousands of podcasts. The first one I've started was not good. First YouTube video I made was not that good. The first book I wrote, before my officially published book, was not that good. And the beautiful thing about having digital stuff is you can just get rid of it. You can remove it and move on and fix it. So, I'm cautious. I don't want people to not do things because they're so worried about it being perfect. This is a digital age. You can change up and update things. I said when I used to do web consulting, people would email me and they'd be like, Jim, I want to start this online business, but I really want to make sure that I have all my contracts and lawyers and all this stuff in place. I want to get my copyright. Or for a book example, they say, I want to release my book, but I really want to pay a lawyer to make sure that it's copyrighted before I upload it. And I'm thinking to myself, really? If someone wants to steal your book, they're going to steal your content. It's just going to happen. Spending $1,000 on a lawyer to give you a piece of paper that says the book is copyrighted isn't really going to make any difference. Just launch the thing and go learn to have success.
Fair enough. So focus on the things that matter, like reviews and making sure the book is good, but don't overstress on the things that don't matter, like making sure that it's all copyrighted. And so you mentioned a few minutes ago that you have this site called Author Marketing Club. So can you tell us about Author Marketing Club as well as any other places you want to send people today?
Yeah, authormarketingclub.com is the site that I've been running for about the last 6 years. We're a tools and training site, basically for people who have already written a book who want to learn how to market it, because that's the hard part. That's why I built the site, because I'm a marketing guy who wrote a book, and I realized you got to learn how to market these things. And I don't care if you've written a book on vampire romance or a book on wheel bearings. You got to find the right way to get that book out there and use that book to generate revenue for you or leads or whatever. So that's what authormarketingclub.com does. We give you tools and training. One of our greatest things is we have a tool called the Reviewer Grabber, and basically it helps you find people who have reviewed similar books. So let's say you wrote a book on Bigfoot and you want to get reviews of that book. Well, the best way to do that is to find other people who have already reviewed similar books to your book, and you contact those people and you say, hey, I wrote a book on Bigfoot too. I realized that you've reviewed this other Bigfoot book. Would you like to look at my book as well? And potentially, would you be interested in leaving a review? Now, that is a tool we have that helps you find those reviewers in seconds on our website. So you can get a list of over 100 people who have reviewed similar books to yours in seconds and start reaching out to those people. And that's just one of the things we do. Plus, we have tons of videos and all kinds of stuff. We have over 25,000 members.
Awesome. So I mean, it sounds like lots of great ways to get more reviews, get more sales, get more promotion of those books without having to fall back on the stuff that either doesn't work or is banned, like the fake reviews, and that's also a better solution than just putting out the book and crossing your fingers and hoping that it'll work. So I mean, it sounds
Well, we
like
all know it doesn't.
right. I mean, yeah. So it sounds like a great resource. So authormarketingclub.com. So everyone go there right now. And thanks a bunch, Jim, for hopping on the show and sort of breaking some of the things that we normally thought about books, that some things were true, some things weren't true. So I really appreciate your expertise and your advice. So thanks for hopping on the program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
This is Robert Plank, and would you like to be a guest on the program? Do you have an idea for a future episode, or do you just want to tell us how we're doing? Get in touch with us right now at robertplank.com/ask to let us know.